You wondering who will be diving into the stuffing less than 2 times? Or who will be eating more than 3 pieces of pie on Thanksgiving? Well, then you got to play the Pick 6 game from DraftKings. Your shot to turn a little cash into a lot. It's super simple to get started. First, download the DraftKings Pick 6 app, now available in Texas, California, and more. Then select between 2 or more players and choose if they'll have more or less than a certain stats, like yards or touchdowns, sacks, whatever. You choose if they're going to have more or less. And for the first time, Pick 6 players, check this out. New customers play $5. You get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use the code BALLERS. That's the code BALLERS for new customers to play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus bets awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 30 days. Limited time offers. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
This episode is brought to you by Instagram. Though we can't all agree on our picks, we can all agree that we want social media to be a safe place for teens. So it's good to hear about Instagram teen accounts, which provide automatic safety settings for teens built with parents' top concerns in mind. Things like making their teens' profiles private by default, having automatic contact limits so they can only be messaged by people they are connected to, and content restrictions that place them in the most restrictive setting, limiting sensitive content they see in places like Explore and Reels. And all of these settings are built in, so no extra work for parents. Instagram is automatically placing teens into teen accounts, and teens under 16 will need a parent's permission to change any of these settings to be less strict. Basically, Instagram teen accounts will limit who can contact teens and the content they see and help ensure teens' time on the app is well spent. And that's something everyone can agree on.
The DFS Studio is brought to you by DraftKings. Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
Welcome in. It's Black Friday here on the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I am joined, as always, by Matthew. He's a few pounds heavier, Betz.
Oh, man. You know, what's the worst about Thanksgiving? I mean, I love it. As you know, we listen to the Tuesday show. Everybody knows how I feel about the slate and the day. It's great. But, you know, like you're required or at least like expected to go to your family gathering with, you know, regular pants, jeans, whatever you wear that have a belt. I mean, let's just set the standard for everybody. On Thanksgiving, we should all be wearing sweatpants, you know, that with an elastic waistband, so it doesn't become an issue. So that's my call for next year for America. We can do this.
Did you see Baker Mayfield's quote? I don't know if you saw this.
I have not seen it.
He was asked about what's on his plate for Thanksgiving, and I quote, direct quote, it's a lot of food, definitely an elastic waistband.
Baker gets it. Baker knows, man.
Baker's become Jason's spirit animal to the point
laser
where he can't not say laser, and then he also can't not recommend or put him as the start of the week. And I mean, hats off to them, man. Who saw the Buccaneers being a team? Because they were a team that I would have faded, and I think I did in a couple of places with the new OC for the 3rd year in a row, and they've just been awesome. But elastic waistband is definitely something that is needed across the country. It would just be great if that was what this holiday or this day, or I guess this isn't a holiday today. It's just kind of like spend your money.
Yeah, this is everybody just spends the day doing nothing, recovering from Thanksgiving. And, you know, we get to watch Chiefs and Raiders later today. AOC back under center, baby. That's a holiday right there.
I'm cool with that. We'll actually give some props for that game later on in this episode. So we will be breaking down the main slate for week 13. You probably just won a ton of money. You're probably swimming Scrooge McDuck style in your cash from what you won on the Thanksgiving Day slate. So we're probably rejoicing with you in Discord. But just a little note, we are recording this early because we want to see our families. And so we will be recording this a day early. This will be coming out when you're hearing this on Friday. So some of the news blurbs, some of the things we're still getting practice reports. We're still trying to figure that out. It's very hard early in the week to kind of decipher everything that we get. For instance, we just got a news blurb about Devonta Smith not being at practice. He might have showed up at practice by the time that you're listening to this, but just keep that in mind. The thing that you need most in your DFS arsenal is our best plays article, which comes out on Saturday, dfspass.com. If you want to be a part of that, we're still offering half off, but the conversation from what you and I have as two friends, just two dudes talking ball, can change over a couple of days. So the best plays is the place to be.
And I'm not going to say can change on this week on this show. I'm just going to say it will change because, with the holiday, it is what it is. We are recording this without complete information. And so we're going to do our best to kind of, give you the lay of the land here with the slate and kind of how we're attacking it. But I mean, things are going to change. There's an injury that'll pop up in the week or something will change with practice reports or whatever. But we will have all that information updated in article form in the DFS Pass. And then, of course, with your DFS Pass, you get access to Discord. We can chat through some stuff there. So, yeah, man, I'm excited to talk about this slate. I think it's actually a really fun one. Nice, fun 10-game slate. A lot of high scoring environments. So we'll talk about it. But yes, dfspass.com is your friend for the slate.
Yeah, there's a matchup of two teams that have broken my heart. They're my two favorite teams in the NFL, and they're playing each other this week. And I just know that I'm going to be hurt again and again and again. So we'll talk about that and talk about some of these other players and how to construct your lineup. I think the conversation goes from here's the skeleton, the bones of how you approach cash games or GPPs, and then you kind of tweak it. You make sure that you add certain players to your pool. You take them out. All of those things you can find in our best pass. But let's jump in.
Straight cash, homie.
I think the easy call early in the week at quarterback is Justin Herbert, who's been a top 12 quarterback for 5 straight weeks. He's the only quarterback in the NFL to do that. And his price is just still left abandoned at 5.6 on DraftKings. He's also kind of affordable on FanDuel. And so he's going to be tagged on both sites as probably one of our top plays. And it's a dome environment. We'll talk about the game in a second, but their pass rate has just gone up and up and up in the second half of the year. So I think Justin Herbert's just a safe, solid play this week.
Yeah, such a clean spot too when you think about how the offense is going to operate. You mentioned, since their bye, they have been among the league leaders in pass rate over expectation. And Greg Roman, I mean, this is not the guy we used to know, right? He used to be the guy that's like, no matter what, we're running the football. He talked about it last week before they played the Ravens. He was like, we're not going to just, go into a brick wall if we don't need to. We have Justin Herbert. So in this specific spot, when you think about what's happening in their backfield with J.K. Dobbins out, I think it would make a lot of sense to just say, hey, we have our best player here playing quarterback. Let's keep doing that. So I love Justin Herbert this week. Since the bye, he's averaged 261 pass yards per game, 8.2 YPA. He has been awesome. And for context, before the bye, 144 pass yards per game. So this is just a different player since we've seen. Remember, he had that high ankle sprain early in the year too. He's healthier. He's running more. So I think Herbert's in a great spot. Atlanta's pass rush has been non-existent for 4 years straight. So I think it's a good spot for Herbert. Very, very easy click in cash games this week.
Yeah, with Dobbins out, does that just give you just a slight uptick in his rush involvement?
Who, for Herbert?
For Herbert.
Potentially. They don't really call a lot of design stuff with him. I'm interested to see if they throw that wrinkle into the game plan this week because he can't do it. But I think it's going to be one of those things where Gus has just been plodding around out there, man. It's been so inefficient that I don't know that they're going to keep giving it to him if that happens in this game. So I don't know if he'll see a ton of rushing as far as Herbert, but he's giving you 15 to 25-ish yards most weeks when he's healthy. So it's possible they use him in the design run game. Yeah,
he got in the end zone this past week, but Gus Bus has not been a very positive play this year, 3.3 yards per carry. Hassan Haskins has maybe been even worse. And Kamani Vidal, the best ball bros are just crying right now. Just saying, hey, the analytics said that this would be a good play and a good pick back in May and June, and it has not been. So I have some rosters that I see him on there. I'm like, this isn't helping my team. He's inactive.
But he'll be active this week. So it's a good week for the best ball teams.
Just to get maybe get him in my flex, get those 2-3 points.
Oh, man. Yeah, well, this is it. Actually, we should talk about this while we're on the Chargers backfield. How are you handling Gus Edwards in cash games? Because I think he's going to project fine as far as like median outcome. I mean, he's 4,300 on DraftKings. Like, how bad could it be? If you're willing to play him, you can do some very fun stuff with your lineup. That said, he's not going to catch passes. You know, Atlanta, like, they've kind of been a pass funnel recently. 24th in EPA per dropback. They've been a little bit better against the run. It kind of feels like you could have a stat line here, 12, 13 carries, 60 yards, and nothing, right? So he's definitely fadeable in tournaments. I would almost kind of encourage that. Would you be willing to play Herbert and Gus in the same lineup? I personally don't think I am.
I just don't know if you need it on this slate. There's some other value we'll talk about. And I just want to stack Herbert. If I'm playing Herbert, I want to stack him up with McConkey or Disley, who look like really good plays at their price point. But yeah, you need Gus to fall in the end zone because he's not catching passes at all. Never has done that. I think Greg Roman has that on his chart. It just says Gus bust. We don't throw him the ball. That's not what you do here. So Herbert and then Anthony Richardson, who is funny because 2 weeks ago I was on him. Last week I was off. This week I'm back on Betz. And at 5.5, yeah, snip, snap, snip, snap. Against the Patriots, I think it's actually a good spot for him and a fine price.
Yeah, I think it's fine. The way I would describe him this week for cash games, I think the floor is very, very strong. When you look at the rushing, he's had 10 rush attempts in back-to-back games. And, even last week when he didn't throw a touchdown, he had a pretty average game as a passer, obviously. He was still, like, not the reason you lost in cash games, right? Like, he still had, I think it was like 12 DraftKings points or something off the top of my head. So he's probably going to give you double-digit DraftKings points just on the rushing alone. Now, the game environment is not ideal. They're on the road. It is outdoors in New England. No Josh Downs definitely does not help this situation. So I think it's fine. Given that these guys are both $100 apart, basically the same price. On DK, I strongly prefer Justin Herbert. But if your lineup for whatever reason needed the $100 and you could drop down to A-Rich, I think that's totally fine.
I will add in that same game, Drake May is somebody in FanDuel that you can play. He's relatively cheap, and he has the second highest scramble rate in the NFL behind only Jaden Daniels. I know you're here for any Drake May love possible. So just put him in your player pool. I think it's totally fine if you want to go in that direction. But at running back, there's a lot of strong plays. I feel like that's been the refrain that you and I have shared the last month is there's probably 3 to 5 guys that we're going to have in our player pool. And I think at the top, it's Kamara, it's Bijan in that 7K range. Both feel like they're going to have a ton of roster percentage. I think Kamara feels really safe with 23 opportunities per game. Did you know he doesn't have a touchdown since week 6?
I did know that, actually, researching for the show. So positive regression potentially here for Kamara?
I hope so. I mean, they're coming off the bye. The Rizzler is working with some tricks. He's been talking up Taysom. So there is that.
Oh, I did see that.
So we'll figure that out. We are going to talk about that game. I was shocked that the total, last time I checked, was at 49 and a half.
Yeah, that's what I see too.
It's wild to see that when you look at the options on the Saints side. You go, Kamara, Taysom, and throw a dart at MVS again. See if it sticks. Like it's kind of out there. But Kamara projects well. Bijan, we're going to talk about that game. He's good play on both sites as well. Let's go into like the lower range because I think Chase Brown is just the dude. He's been the guy for Cincinnati. 6.2 on DraftKings, 7.3 on FanDuel. It's a workload thing, and it's the fact that he catches passes, and this game's been bet up. We're going to talk about that one too. But Chase Brown feels like I want to play him. I played him a couple weeks ago before the bye in cash, and he's just solid.
Yeah, he's literally touching the ball every single time that the running back gets it, right? There's nobody else right now. Now, I will say that was kind of like, we're on the fly. We got to adjust. Let's just go with him. He knows the offense. Let's give him everything. And he's been good. They come out of their bye week. I would not be shocked if somebody else in this backfield steals, 4 or 5 touches, but like still, he's probably touching the ball 20 times in this game. Since he's become the starter, 83% of the snaps, 20.7 carries per game. More importantly on DraftKings, 7.7 targets per game. is what he's seeing. So it is just
That's
an unbelievable
crazy.
workload. And Pittsburgh, like, kind of quietly, has been terrible against the run recently. They are 31st in EPA against the run since week 8, allowing 4.6 yards per carry. That's the 9th worst mark in football. Also the 6th highest explosive rush rate. So it is a very clean spot here for Chase Brown. Like I said, especially on DK where you get that PPR upside in the pass game. So I like Chase Brown quite a bit. He is severely underpriced.
Chase Brown, and then my boy Bucky Irving, or I've been calling him Buck Wild recently.
I like it.
5.8. I know he shares a backfield. I think that's the hardest part with him, but 5.8 on the road against Carolina. And this year, if you look at running backs that have 100 plus rush attempts, he's 4th in explosive rush rate, 3rd in forced missed tackles per attempt, and 1st in yards after contact per attempt. I just feel so good with Bucky Irving that you have some touchdown equity. He's been getting more involved as a pass catcher, and hopefully they're done with this Sean Tucker nonsense around the goal line. But I think Bucky at his price point is just another solid play.
Yeah, he's been awesome. We had an over on his longest run last week in props. And for the first 3 quarters, it was like, this doesn't look great. And then all of a sudden he rips off, that 50-yarder. Like that's what he can do. He's super explosive. The metrics on him are awesome. I do share your concern of it is annoying if Sean Tucker's going to get 2 or 3 carries in this game and one of them or 2 of them are coming at the 3-yard line. Like that is a concern and a little bit annoying, but the matchup is so good. He's so involved. He's so explosive. Now you said that the pass game worked 6 targets last week was awesome to see. So yeah, if that's what your build kind of leads you towards, I'm totally fine with that as well.
All right. The big piece of news that we have as of our recording might be different for you, but I mean, we're dealing with what is going on with Breece Hall. So before we speculate too far, he's dealing with some knee soreness. If Braylon Allen was the only dude in the backfield, he's a lock. No questions asked. He's a lock, especially on FanDuel at 5,300 is stealing over there. But we're going to kind of wait and see. There's no reason for us to talk any further on that. That'll be reflected in our best plays if he's there, but it's really simple. If Breece is out, Braylon Allen's a cash lock, and then you can go from there. So any last thoughts on that?
Nope. I think you summed it up perfectly. I'm not even sure who would be the RB2 in that situation if Breece was out. Would it be Abanaconda?
I mean,
I'm pretty sure he's been inactive every single game day.
Isaiah Davis has still been getting a lot of special team stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's Braylon Allen. I have him in a home league, just been sitting on him.
So do I.
Baby.
Do I. Just waiting. I've been holding him for 7 weeks straight.
I feel like that's been the case this year. If you've been playing season-long stuff, you're like, oh, one of these backs is going to hit. And we've been like, oh, is it Trey Benson? Is it Corum? It's Braylon Allen, and he can handle it. He's a big boy. They're coming off the bye, but everybody hates themselves on that team. That's the the psychological part is they all hate each other.
Oh, the Jets, man. The Jets. I just cannot wait to move on from this Jets team and just, turn the page. But yeah, Braylon Allen, like you said, if he's in there, if he's the dude, he's in your cash lineup.
He's just a kid, man. He's not even 21.
He's so young.
He's just everyone else is oh, during our bye, we're going to go do this, that. And Braylon's like, well, I'm just going to be at home, my family, not doing anything.
Playing video games. Making mac and cheese.
Yeah, he's still in his Thanksgiving time with his family, trying to live off the good vibes of what it's like to be a child. So,
I'm jealous.
Braylon Allen, we'll talk about that later. Wide receiver, I love Puka at 7.6. He's just been awesome. He leads the entire NFL in targets per route run, 34%. He gets targeted. He's the dude. Nico Ballins, we've talked him up, 7.9. That is not expensive enough because he's playing the Jaguars, who stink in every single way possible. I can't imagine a team that I would love to see annihilated more than the Jaguars with Nico Collins. So just to give you a stat with that, they're dead last in almost every single position against fantasy. But when it comes to pass and yards per pass attempt and explosive pass plays, they're the worst. So this is Nico just killing them.
Yeah, the last time that he faced them earlier this year, do you remember what the game was like?
Did he go for 1,000?
14 targets, 12 catches, 151 yards, and a touchdown. Yeah, it's a Nico week. I'm not sure how the builds are going to look for cash. We played him in cash, both of us did last week. it just feels like there's so much more left with Nico where you're like, that stinks, right? Like 2 weeks ago in that primetime game, had the first play of the game, screen pass, called back from touchdown. Okay, we're a little frustrated. It's fine. Next week, Nico had a very good game. Another touchdown called back. So like it just feels like an explosion is coming this week, and this is the matchup to do it. So yeah, especially after Houston lost that game, they kind of farted around in that game, man. Like, Bobby, feed Nico. He is a monster, and he's going to dominate here. So the fact that he only had like 3 targets through the first quarter and a half.
What were they doing?
Call the FBI. I mean, that is criminal to do that with one of your best players. So I hope Bobby is listening. Your close personal friend, Bobby Slovic.
Yeah.
Bobby, brother, please. My teams need Nico. So yes, we love Nico this week. But I mean, if you need the 300, Puka looks incredible against the Saints as well.
Yeah, those are kind of the spend up options that I really like this week. I mean, I'll probably go back to Jefferson in some tournaments just because I love when people think like, Jefferson, we know what he is. But those are the 2 spend up options. In the middle tier, Ladd McConkey is another one of those Monday night pricing glitches where his price kind of just stayed in a really good spot. So it's 6.1. And then on FanDuel, I mean, Ladd McConkey at 6.3 feels like a steal. Also, if you want a narrative, Georgia boy coming home.
Oh, like that call. A lot of friends in the area, some family maybe.
Yeah, he's from Chatsworth, which is kind of like North Dalton area. You know the area.
Beautiful area. Love it up there.
North Georgia. It's some good spots, but Ladd is a great play at his price point. If you want to go a little bit further down, Pity City at 5.2 is fine. He's fine. Like I hate saying that because he's been a player that we've loved on this podcast for forever.
We built this city.
He was birthed on this podcast, and yet I think it's just one of those things that you never just feel like I'm going to get a ceiling outcome. But he led the team last week. His splits have been better with Richardson than they have been Flacco. If you don't want to go Pity City, I don't mind A.D. Mitchell. He's below 4K, so right at 3.9 as like a punt option if you want to go that direction.
Yeah, I think both guys are in play. Obviously, I would not play them together in the same cash lineup. We were talking before the show recorded, and there's not props on every game out as of our recording yet, but I looked on FanDuel. They do have a completions line out for Anthony Richardson this week. It is 12.5 with the juice to the under. So I'm terrified to play. I'm terrified to play Colts pass catchers, but Josh Downs, dude's awesome. He earns targets at an extremely high rate. So there is opportunity here if A-Rich can have a good game through the air. The way you can kind of tell by the way I'm talking, like I'm not like in love with it, but again, if that's kind of where your build leads you to, I think Pittman and A.D. Mitchell are both in play. Obviously, A.D. Mitchell very, very cheap, 3,900.
Yeah, and the Patriots are 31st against wide receivers the last 6 weeks. So the matchup says you can play them. Some other good plays on FanDuel as well. I'll say George Pickens at 7.4 is in a great spot. I mean, he destroyed the Bengals last year. Last time he played them last year, 195-2 on 4 catches. So
that ain't bad.
Pickens is a good play. Ridley is still underpriced, but you'll have that all reflected in our best plays. All right, let's go to tight end. There's a bunch of dudes in the 4K range that I've been sorting through. TJ Hawkinson at 4.4 is, I don't know, the second target confidently. Like some weeks I feel like it's going to be Addison. I think it's going to be Jefferson every week, but I feel Hawkinson has a very clear carved out role. And I played him in a bunch of tournaments last week, and he was terrible the first half of the game. Awesome down the stretch. Hawkinson looks great. I think he's my favorite right now, but the other ones you have listed here are Hunter Henry and your boy Will Disley.
Yeah, Hawkinson, just real quick on him, like as kind of is always the case off these ACL injuries, teams will kind of gradually work their guys in. 61%, 71%, drop down to 57% of the routes. Last week, 86% of the routes. So like Hawkinson is back and they've unleashed him. So I do love him in this spot as well. Hunter Henry just kind of keeps getting it done. Like never really has these incredible ceiling games. I guess he had one in like week 2 or 3. I forget what it was, but never really is like gonna break the slate. But he's Drake May's dude and he's totally fine. Big Montana. I mean, 4K. I laughed because when I was doing some research for this show, I realized his ADOT was like 6 yards. Like it's like non-existent. So you kind of know what you're getting, right? Not a lot of yards after the catch, not a lot of explosive upside, but in a spot that you like the Chargers to throw, I'm into Big Montana. The issue for me is I don't know that I would love to play a Herbert double stack in tournaments. And if you are someone that is going to play Gus Bus with those guys, that's just way too many eggs in one basket for me. So it's a decision point. I think they're all in your player pool, but I agree with you. Hawkinson is my favorite.
It's hilarious that I've been playing Will Disley every week in cash on FanDuel, and it's kind of worked out recently. It's just weird to be able to go there. But those are kind of our options in the 4K range. Taysom is intriguing at 5K. I'm not playing Taysom and Kamara together. Let's say you didn't get to Kamara. Does that change your outlook of Taysom, or is he just like not a cash play for you?
I don't think he's a cash play for me personally. 5K is a lot for a tight end period. It's interesting for Taysom because like he's not really a traditional tight end. He's kind of like running back at times. So when you look at projection systems, you almost just like have to throw it out the window and understand when you play him what you're getting into, where the floor is pretty low, but there's a massive ceiling, obviously, as you saw a couple weeks ago. So for me, like I kind of think of him as like tournament only, where especially at 5K, like when people using optimizers are not going to get him because it's too expensive. It doesn't look good, all those things. I think he's a good tournament play. For me, I think I'm off him in cash.
I think he's going to show up somewhere close to the top 5 for me, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to be hard to get up to that salary. And I'm not really finding a ton of punt options early in the week at tight end. There could be one that emerges, like a Schoonmaker that just kind of plops in our lap and we're cool with it. But it's Hawkinson, Henry, Will Disley, and then if you hate yourself, you can play Zach Ertz.
Oh man, what's funny about him is like the box scores are actually fine, right? Because he had the garbage time touchdown against the Eagles 2 weeks ago.
Totally fine.
And he scored last week too, didn't he?
Yes.
So, I mean, if you like fantasy points, I guess Zach Ertz is your guy. Yeah, I'm not going to play him. Straight up. But if you want to play him, you can totally do that.
He projects fine though. Like he's gonna keep at 3.8. He's gonna be totally fine if you want to go there. At defense, the Jets are interesting because they're cheap, not because they're good. But if you told me at the beginning of the year I'm getting the Jets at home at 2,500, I'd be like, sweet, this is the defense we're playing. They're just a different unit, man. Or at least they're motivated in a weird way, and they are now 2-point home dogs against Seattle. But the price says you can play them in cash. You can also play the Colts at 2.8, just Drake May. As much as we love him, he's taking sacks. They're totally fine. But there's kind of there's a couple teams in this 2K range. I love the Texans. I want to spend up for the Texans. I just don't know if I'm going to have the money for it.
Yeah, I mean, the Texans' ceiling here is insane against the Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence not having, really many of his skill players left, right? Let's be honest. And the left shoulder injury as well definitely does not help. So, yeah, that looks incredible. It's just a salary thing. For the Jets, you mentioned they have, I think your wording was they have unusual or different motivation levels here. They have no motivation anymore, Kyle. This team is checked out. But Geno will drop back and he's going to throw, right? Which just gives you a chance for takeovers and sacks and all that things. So, yeah, the Jets are fine. I think they're a pretty good fade potentially in tournaments, but for cash games at 2,500, how bad could it be?
On FanDuel, I'll also add the Vikings at 4.3. They're at home against Kyler, who is the most schizophrenic, no idea what he's going to be week to week kind of quarterback. But 4.3, it's a good unit at home if you want to go that direction. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Etsy.
Oh.
Hear that?
Okay, thank you.
Etsy knows these aren't the sounds of holiday gifting. Well, not the ones you're hoping for. You want squeals of delight. Happy tears.
How did you?
And spontaneously written songs of joy.
I am so happy. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, the song needs a bit of work, but anyway, to get those reactions, make sure everyone on your list feels heard with handmade, handpicked, and designed gifts from small shops on Etsy. Gifts like personalized jewelry, custom artwork, cozy style items, vintage pieces, and home decor to celebrate all of your favorite people and their specific kind of special. For original gifts that say, I get you, Etsy has it.
With Lululemon, the real gift happens when they're living in it. When you give them the softest loungewear set, the real gift is this. And this. and this. This holiday, Lululemon makes it easy to give a gift that goes beyond. Open the moment. Shop now at Lululemon.com.
All right, brother, I'm going to do a little check-in here. Is the hot tea flowing right now? Hot tea?
I've actually I just finished one before we started recording, so not currently.
Okay. Well, you know me. I'm going for it. I'm still here. I still am embracing this part of my life. I think I'm on my 4th cup of tea today.
Okay. Easy, buddy. That's a lot. No, I'm like a 2 cups per day kind of guy. Morning, I'll like kind of have coffee a little bit like throughout the morning as I'm working. And then around lunch, I'll switch to a tea, which I just finished. And then I will have my sleepy time tea at approximately 9 o'clock at night. Not a sponsor. Could be a sponsor.
I like that. I like that scenario. There's some people listening like, man, you guys have such cushy jobs. I mean, these are the things that I kind of get to like break up the pace of stuff. Like, go take a 10-minute walk. I'm going to go standing desk. This is
back
where
to
I'm
sitting desk. Back to standing desk. I mean, we're just living, Kyle.
I don't know if I've given out this secret before on the podcast, but if I feel like, I'm dragging or like, man, I like need a jolt of energy. Everyone has their own things, their own vices. Mine is I play Round Ball Rock, which is the theme song of the NBA on NBC, and it just gets me going.
Oh, it is such a good song. It puts you like in a good mood. Like as soon as I hear it, I'm like, all right, let's go be productive. So I like it.
I have such good memories of watching basketball. They were Knicks fans growing up. One of my friends just loved Spreewell. I loved Allen Houston. We'd watch the game together, and the Sixers would usually kick their butt.
Oh man, that's great. I'm so glad you said that because now next time I'm feeling like a little sluggish, pop that on and go to town.
I mean, that was free. Just free wisdom given out here. So no big deal.
Stack Attack.
We are going to talk about the games in week 13 that you need to stack up this week. There are a good amount. And also, because this week was a little different, we had the Thanksgiving slate. We didn't really get to preview the games like we normally do. We preview on a Tuesday. We kind of slowly marinate over them. This is one of those things where I'm going to kind of react with you live of how I think this game is going to go. We haven't talked through it the same way we did with the Thanksgiving game. So the first game we're going to talk about is an AFC North battle. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are 3-point home favorites, and this game has been bet up. I'm seeing some places been all the way up to 48. And part of it is I love that the Bengals just don't care anymore, apart from just we're throwing the ball. We're number 1 in pass rate over expectation. We're going to go for it. And they really are at the point of their season where if they don't win, they are dead. So the Bengals at home and their pass attack seems like a really good thing to buy into. They're not cheap, though. So if you wanted to stack up Burrow with Chase, you're paying up for it. Higgins is $2,000 cheaper than Jamar Chase on DK, so that is kind of one of those things where if you want to pay down, I get it. But where do you want to start on the Bengals side?
Yeah, let's talk about that and kind of how you approach this from a game theory standpoint because Chase Brown's a great play. Like, I don't really have anything negative to say about him, but just understand I would be surprised if he's not, top 3 most popular running back plays in the slate, top 4. So if you did want leverage there, I think a Burrow stack is very much in play. The issue is, like you said, on DK, specifically talking about pricing here, $7K for Burrow, $8,600 for Chase, and then Higgins at $6,600 is a lot of salary to commit to a double stack. Now, the nice thing about these Burrow games is we've seen this insane ceiling where if the game script goes a certain way, he will throw, 40, 45, 50 times. And if that happens, where the ball is going. It's pretty much just those two dudes. So I still think like that's probably worth chasing an upside case and ceiling, outcomes, especially if you are going to get paid off with low roster percentage relative to Chase Brown. So even though it's expensive, I am into it. If you did not want to play the full stack, I think T is just a great play. We didn't really talk about him in cash games, but if someone had T in their cash lineup, I would say that's totally cool. In the games that they have played together this year, it's actually Higgins who has a higher air yard share, ADOT, and target share, and he's cheaper. So while Jamar Chase is obviously fantastic, T. Higgins is not that far behind, and you're getting a huge discount. So I love T. Higgins in this game, but yes, I'm very interested in the pass game here, just because exactly what they want to do and they want to throw a ton.
Yeah, I think in this game, I'm really interested in stacking up the Bengals passing attack, bringing it back with somebody like Pickens, who, is relatively expensive. I think the Muth is actually kind of interesting. Cincinnati's been pretty bad against tight ends over the last couple of months. But Higgins is one of those players that, remember like 2 or 3 years ago, we'd bring him up every single week in cash. And some of our listeners, people in Discord, like, you guys talk way too much about T. Higgins. And you're kind of seeing him be an alpha. Like when he's on the field, he's been top 10 in 3 of his last 4 games. He just needs to stay on the field. So I think he's a really good play at his price point. Is it one of those things where you would just go Burrow, absorb the chalk of Chase Brown, and then kind of look at the roster percentages between Chase and Higgins and kind of dictate that?
I think you could play it that way, especially if you're playing small field stuff, less than 1,000 people or whatever, and you're just saying the Bengals are the team you need on the slate and they go bonkers. That would work, including Chase Brown in that stack. But I think my preference is just to say I know Chase Brown is going to be insanely popular. I would rather just take the leverage standpoint here and just go Burrow with his 2 guys.
It's hard to really look at the running backs on the other side and say I'm going to get anything more than just a meh outcome. Like Najee, I'm looking at our ranks for season long. Every single week, he's like RB22. It's just like, yeah, you can play him. Yeah, he's going to get 20 opportunities. He might get a touchdown, but he's not going to give you the difference-making performance you need. Now, I say all of that. I know how this works in DFS. Najee's going to ball out. He's the piece you need. He's the skeleton key. So if you want to play Najee, that's fine. Jalen Warren did have a touchdown last week. I still don't really want to go there at all. So what are you going to do on the Steelers side?
That's the tough part about this game is like, if you did want to play it as a back and forth, it's like, okay, cool. Like, who am I going to play on the Steelers side? I mean, in theory, you could throw a dart on whoever you want as far as the cheap guys. Like Calvin Austin kind of got there last week on Showdown, but that feels very chasey. So it's like you're obviously either playing Pickens or Najee, and Warren I think is fine in large field stuff. He's really cheap on FanDuel, 5,800. But that's the problem is like there's not really many options. So like Russ stacks aren't really that in play, right? I mean, I guess you could single him with Pickens, but yeah, I'm with you. It's like you're either playing Pickens or Najee, and I don't know what it is about Najee. Like every week that I come around to him, I'm like, okay, it's a good matchup. I'm in, the workload's there. He's like farting around for 2.5 yards per carry. The second I'm off of him, ripping off 50-yard runs. So I have no clue what to think or feel about Najee, but my general stance is that I'm probably not going to be playing him, which means you can guarantee Najee will turn into Marshall Faulk on Sunday.
The salary is expensive in this game. If you want a Burrow Chase stack with the Pickens bring back, which is just, man, I love saying stuff like that. A Burrow Chase stack with the Pickens bring back.
That was nice.
You need 70 plus points. Like you're eating into so much of what you have to do. And I think Pickens is like on FanDuel. I like Pickens a lot. He's a priority play for me. On DraftKings, he's fine. You need to hit the 100-yard bonus with him. He's had some absolute dud games too, or games that weren't helpful for DFS purposes. So the salary is the only issue I have in this game, but I like the Burrow passing attack. I like buying in on the pass rate over expectation. Mike Gesicki is not on my radar because he doesn't exist when T. Higgins is on the field. He's averaging 1.8 targets per game with T. Higgins on the field this year. So it's a Burrow double stack, and then the Muth and Pickens are the only guys I'm really interested. What about Russ?
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough click for me at that spot when Richardson can run for 80 yards and a touchdown at the same price. We already talked about Herbert at the same price I really like. So, Russ, I've played the stack with Pickens before, and it hasn't worked out. Doesn't mean it won't. It's just with Burrow and their side, the pass volume is going to be there. If the game goes the way the Steelers want it to go, Russ will attempt 28 passes in this game, right? So like they just don't want to unleash him. So maybe he can get there on efficiency, but it's a tough sell for me personally when there's so many other good quarterback plays in the slate.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you look at the slate, and one of the things that I've been talking up in my cash review article, and we talk up a lot, is slate ID. Just identifying, it's a term, but identifying the slate and kind of looking at it and saying, this is a pretty big slate we're dealing with. Like, despite there being 3 Thanksgiving games, there's a lot of good options I can look at quarterback, especially in the spend up. If we're looking at Lamar, we're looking at Hurts, looking at Herbert. Like there's a lot of
Daniels.
There's just so many other places that I think the ceiling outcome is way better. Where Russ, like, I don't know. I feel like Russ is like 90th percentile is like 23 points.
Yeah. But I mean, at that price, if that's what you got, you'd be happy. I think those outcomes are somewhat few and far between.
All right. I will be taking, for my Vegas take, the Bengals and the points.
I'm going to take the Steelers as a dog in a divisional game. So give me the +3.
Weren't you the guy that was fading the Steelers beginning of this year?
Yes, I was. And you saw on Thursday night why that was the case. Dang it.
Next game is the Los Angeles Rams at the New Orleans Saints. The old McVay versus Rizzy battle. I mean, it really comes down to who has the most Riz. And I'll say this, the Saints have kind of bought into this is our interim guy. I even saw Blake Groupie, their kicker, was wearing a Merry Rizmas shirt. It's like, all right.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that's great when you can find the kicker who's just all in on the team morale. Usually they just like when you see all the Jameis stuff, you're like, oh, this team loves Jameis. They're all together. It's like, you don't see the kicker in the mix too.
Sure don't.
So, but Groupie is part of the groupie. That's his name. So they're 2-0 with the Riz. The offense has a little bit more swagger. We've kind of seen Derek Carr have some solid weeks with MVS. And the Rams are allowing a pretty high explosive pass rate. So there's lots of pieces to kind of piece it together. You can obviously look at the Rams side and say, we love Kupp, we love Puka. Don't love Kyren, man. Kyren has been super inefficient, like incredibly inefficient, to the point where I'm like, I can't click the button at his price.
Yeah, that's the thing with Kyren. Not that his efficiency doesn't matter, because it does to some degree, but he's just getting everything. So even if he is 3.5 a carry or whatever, he's getting every goal line touch, and he's going to be involved, for 20 to 25 most weeks, opportunities per game. So I still think he's in play. He kind of feels like we've done this before, we're kind of over it standpoint. So I think in tournaments, actually, Kyren is super interesting in this spot. The New Orleans rush D is not as bad as it was, over the last previous month or so. Like in the most recent sample, since week 8, they're 18th in EPA per rush, so still not great, but relatively speaking, in weeks 1 through 7, they were 28th. They were obviously a joke in rush defense. So they have played better in that aspect, but still, just the Rams offense, I think you want to buy into. Obviously, a tough spot last week against my Eagles, but this feels like a very winnable game, one that they have to have. So I like the Rams just in general on this slate.
I think my favorite way to attack this game is looking at the Rams side and seeing that they've been 4th in pass rate over expectation since Puka returned, and you look at the identity of this offense and where they're most efficient, it's passing the ball. So a Stafford double stack, and then you're bringing it back with Kamara, or in tournaments, you're saying Taysom just has another crazy game. I mean, you saw Saquon annihilate them on the ground recently. They've given up the 6th most rushing yards in the NFL the Rams have. So I really like the passing attack, or the rushing attack on the Saints side and the passing attack on the Rams side. I'll probably just correlate that way.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense to me. And real quick on the Saints rushing offense, I think they're going to get a couple of offensive linemen back this week. They've gotten a couple back.
That's key.
That's key. In the previous week before the bye, I think they might get another one back this week. So just monitor some of those practice reports. But yes, I am with you on that. Taysom as leverage off of Kamara, again, for tournaments just makes so much sense.
All right. So Puka's not, he's expensive when you look at the other options on the slate, or you're trying to find value, but I think for his price, he's totally doable in cash, and you can play him in tournaments. He has a ceiling outcome. Are you really looking to get weird in this game? I'm not going to play any of the Rams tight ends. I'm not looking to go into the Mason Tiptons of the world. I don't mind MVS as a deep dart throw, but now he's expensive for him. So it's really just a couple of dudes on the Saints side and then the passing attack.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you 100%.
All right. What's your Vegas take?
Let's go with, this feels like the most public square play of all time, but I'm taking the Rams to win the game. I'll lay the -2.5.
Yeah, if this line gets up to 3 or 3.5, I would take the Saints at home in this one. But McVay, man. It's McVay. He knows what he's doing.
Off a loss, too.
He's just been stewing. He's like, I can't let some dude named the Rizzler beat me this week.
It'd be so embarrassing. Can't even show your face to your family after that. They got to win this game.
Next one is my two favorite teams in the NFL, the Los Angeles Chargers at the Atlanta Falcons. What could possibly go wrong? Like, is there a chance where both of these teams lose the game? Not even tie, just lose.
I don't think so, actually. But
Okay.
there might be a tie in this one.
Man,
Which would be the most like Chargers and Falcons thing of all time.
totally would. Both teams kind of started the year slow, running the ball. We kind of were like, okay, well, this is the identity of the team. We saw the Falcons kind of transition, and then they've kind of reverted back recently to running the ball more. The Chargers, on the other hand, over the last 6 weeks, they have the second highest explosive pass rate. We talked up Herbert. He's a good cash play. I really like him. Atlanta also can't pressure the quarterback at all. You brought that up earlier. Just to give you some numbers, according to Next Gen Stats, they have generated pressure on just 26% of the dropbacks. That's the fourth lowest by any defense since 2018. If you watch a Falcons game, next time watch them on defense if you want to just cry your eyes out and just go, why is the person in the pocket just able to do whatever they want all the time? So anyway, it's a defense that you can pass on because they generate no pressure. And I think with Gus Bus out, I think you're going to see a good amount of volume. So I think Herbert, if you want to double stack him, I think there's really a lot of possibilities here for Ladd, for Disley. You know, if you wanted to shoot a dart at Cuge and say that he gets a touchdown somehow, I'm totally fine with that. But how are you attacking this game?
Yeah, you mentioned, I think you said if Gus is out, obviously I think you meant JK.
JK, sorry.
Yeah, but I'm with you. We talked about Herbert for cash, great spot. Ladd is a cash game play. Disley is a cash game consideration. So I'm really interested to see like when the roster percentage report comes out later today and then through the weekend, like how the field is handling this stack, because I really don't have anything negative to say about it. The problem is it's just going to be insanely popular. So if you do play a Herbert stack, just understand you will need to get different elsewhere for tournaments in your lineup. Totally fine to play chalk. I mean, they're good plays for a reason. I will say I am very interested in Quentin Johnson this week, which is a sentence I
did
never
not think you're going to say that.
Thought I would say in my entire life after what happened last year and last week. But you listen to Herbert talk on the podium immediately after the game, and he's like, yeah, you know, that happens. I'm going to go right back to him. So I would not be surprised. Like, Harbaugh's a player's coach. I would not be surprised if they try to scheme up a couple looks and hope that he gets off to a good start in this game and then go from there. So I actually do have some interest in there. If I am playing a Herbert stack, he'd be part of it, I think, in tournaments.
What do you think about getting a little crazy here with your boy Kirko Chains at home, who, let's be honest, hasn't been good? He's had like 2 good games this year. They were both against Tampa Bay. It does give you an opportunity to get a little different in this game if you don't want to stack up the Herbert side. You think, hey, individual options get there, but Herbert, you know, let's say they get a Haskins goal line touchdown, Herbert throws for 2, and he's fine for cash, but for tournament, you don't get a ceiling. I think if Atlanta's pushed, I think you could see some volume from the Kirk side. And so you just stack up Kirk with 2 options because he obviously doesn't run anymore and never has. So Bijan is a good play and he's a pass catcher, but we kind of have to figure out what to do with Darnell Mooney if he plays. We're still waiting on information about him and his hamstring injury. So any interest in stacking up the Atlanta Falcons side at home in the Mercedes-Benz Dome?
Oh, man. I mean, imagine the Chargers just waltzing in here thinking they're going to walk out with a victory. Are you kidding me? I think the Chargers win this game handily. Now, in this spot, I actually don't have a ton of interest in Cousins. Obviously, if Mooney does not play, like you could get some really good value in Pitts or Ray, and obviously London would just be an outstanding play from a median projection standpoint. I just love Bijan in this spot. The Chargers quietly 29th in EPA per rush since week 8. Like, you think about the Chargers and Harbaugh and like tough team, they're going to stop the run. They really have struggled. I mean, 5.08 yards per carry. That's the 3rd worst in that sample, the 7th highest explosive rush rate. And really since, I would say maybe like 3 weeks ago, roughly off the top of my head, you kind of have seen Algier get phased out a little bit. And you look at the standings, like the Falcons need to win this game. I mean, the South is kind of up for grabs, right? So chips are down. I think they're going to Bijan a ton here. So I love Bijan Robinson this week. I think it's a great spot.
Yeah, I have him marked in cash on both sites. Drake London is, I think, relatively cheap for the ceiling outcome you can get. 6,500 on DK, 7,300 on FanDuel. He's averaging 5.5 receptions per game. I can see him getting passed over. So if you wanted to create some leverage in this game, you play London over McConkey. And that's an easy way to get there in this game, but there's got to be somebody in this game. If it's the Huge, the Josh Palmers, those dudes of the world, and is his name Kyle Pitts? That's the question that people are asking.
Who's asking that? You?
The people.
Allegedly. Oh man, I can't even lie to you, Kyle. I haven't even thought about Kyle Pitts once in this slate, which means he's probably a pretty good tournament play.
Okay, that's all I needed to hear. I'm not coming in saying he's a good play. If he's off the radar, and if the Falcons are off the radar, because you look at the line in this game, is that a little fishy to you, man? A little strange?
What, the spread?
Yeah.
I think the Chargers win this game.
Dang it. I mean, I think if Atlanta coming off the bye is like some semblance of hope as like a fan and just kind of analyzing the game and thinking like, okay, hopefully they self-scout and realize what they did the last 2 weeks, which was far away games. And it didn't really matter. So I think this game is interesting from a pace standpoint, but you kind of have to figure out the way that it flows. If J.K. Dobbins in this game, I think it could have nosedived, but he's going to be out. If Gus is ineffective, then you're going to see a lot more pass attempts from Herbert. So if you did though, Herbert double stack with Bijan bring back, you're running into so much roster percentage. So that's my
true.
only thing about this game.
That's why I was going to say, if you're going to play a Herbert stack, I think if I'm playing a Herbert stack, I'm pretty sure I want Ladd in there. He's been so good, and his target threat run and everything are off the charts. Just good at the game. Like you said, it's a homecoming. He's going to show out for his fam. So I want Ladd in there with Herbert, but that's why I think Quentin Johnston is like interesting. Like if you're betting on Herbert to attempt 35 passes here and go off, why not go back to the guy that everybody just saw in primetime drop 4 passes and do nothing? It just feels like a good tournament play if you're going to play a Herbert team. So that's kind of how I'm using it to get leverage in this game, is through Quentin Johnston. It's crazy, man. I'm like super into Quentin Johnston on this slate. I don't even know who I am anymore.
Well, thanks for giving away your slate breaker this early in the podcast. Everyone already knows. They're already writing it down. Quentin Johnston. I can't really give a Vegas take. I'm 100% serious. I am so biased about both of these teams. So I'll take Falcons money line.
You just guaranteed a Chargers win. Thanks, brother.
And you said you're picking the Chargers. Okay.
I'm on the Chargers.
All right. Speaking of bias, we've got one more game here to preview. It's the Philadelphia Eagles and the Baltimore Ravens. But I need to take a break because I haven't hit the button.
This episode is brought to you by NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV. There's plenty to be thankful for. Your friends, family, and the fact that you can now get NFL Sunday Ticket for only $89. So thank yourself this holiday season and watch every game every Sunday when you bundle NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV. Sign up now at youtube.com/Sunday Ticket. Offer ends December 2nd. Local and national games on YouTube TV. NFL Sunday Ticket for out-of-market games excludes digital-only games. Terms and embargoes apply.
So, you want to be a marketer. It's easy. You just have to score a ton of leads and figure out a way to turn them all into customers. Plus, manage a dozen channels, write 1 million blogs, and launch 100 campaigns all at once. When that's done, simply make your socials go viral and bring in record profits. No sweat. Okay, fine. It's a lot of sweat. But with HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools, launching benchmark-breaking campaigns is easier than ever. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
Corporate just down our back saying, you got to hit that button for the ad break. All of our producers were on the line. They were just hounding us saying, you got to hit that button.
We got to make some money on the show. Hit the button, Kyle. That's what just happened through Slack. So yeah, Kyle might not be employed next week if that happens again.
It's always the people in corporate that are pushing the paper behind the scenes. And then here's us, just doing some grunt labor, talking about some real tough stuff, and we get to pay for it. And we get, who's going to get called in the office? Who's going to have a memo on their desk?
You are. Monday, after a Thanksgiving holiday.
Oh, God, that's the worst.
You know what? Unplug your fax machine. Then you won't get it.
Okay. Here we go. Eagles, Ravens, Battle of the Birds. An Eagle would destroy a Raven for what it's worth. Just not even.
Oh, definitely.
Not even a real fight, but the Ravens are 3-point home favorites. The over-under is 50.5. Saw some places it was at 51. I like the players in this game for home leagues. There is a lot of money that you have to spend in DFS, and you're going to have to pay for it. So, I mean, let's say we did get some cheap options that we were like, okay, you play Braylon Allen or the Gus Bus or somebody, Chase Brown, and you have a cheap core of players that you're working with. It can, but man, like stacking up Hurts with Brown, playing Saquon or Henry, this game is expensive.
Yeah, that's the tricky thing in this spot. But like, is there a salary that's expensive enough right now for Barkley and Derrick Henry? I don't know if there is, right? Which is how good those guys have been. So I'm still very interested in this spot. I'm interested to get your take on the Eagles here because, like, if Devonta Smith misses this game again, in theory, the targets should condense once again to pretty much A.J. Brown and maybe Dallas Goedert. But if you're playing Hurts, you're kind of hoping the pass rate spikes here. But in theory, like if Smith's out, they probably won't. You know what I'm trying to get at here, where it's like it's a push and pull. It's a pass funnel defense in Baltimore, so I think they're going to throw more. But Saquon's just been so good that I don't know that they want to. So how do you see the Eagles playing this one if Devonta Smith is out?
I think volume is not something you ever need with the Eagles. It's always efficiency. Like Jalen Hurts is never going to be the dude that's going to throw 40 times in a game, very much. So it's a condensed target share. So if Smith's out, then you just only look at two options. A.J. Brown, all right? And it's not Jahan Dotson, I can tell you that.
Oh, man. Did you see that in Sunday night's game? He still played a decent amount, but you wouldn't know it. But it was actually Johnny Wilson and Anais Smith that started over him. I was shocked.
It sucks, man.
No words.
So the point with the Eagles is it's a very condensed target share. So it's A.J. Brown, it's Dallas Goedert. That's the one before I made my really cool joke. Is at 4,300, I think he's totally fine. But I think A.J. Brown's a stellar play on both sides. On FanDuel, I don't even mind playing him in cash at 8,800. He's just that good, and this is the matchup for it. So I wonder who's going to be most popular in this game. Like I'm trying to figure out, we're way too early in the week, but like, are people going to click Saquon and Henry that much? It's like, you want to pick the right side. You know that both rush defenses are good. And so that's just going to push down the roster percentage because we didn't even mention either in cash. So like Bijan and Kamara are going to be the expensive guys that people play, and then a bunch of, cheaper running backs. So if both of them are under 10% or even lower, 5%, like those are awesome tournament plays, both of them.
Yeah, definitely. And real quick too on Saquon, obviously you don't need me to tell you he's been good, but his matchup gets so much better if Roquan Smith does not play. We had an under on Dobbins in that game just because Baltimore's defense has been dominant. Late in the week, did not look great with Roquan Smith getting downgraded to out. You saw Dobbins have a very nice game before the injury. We got lucky there. So I think if Roquan Smith is out, it's a huge deal for the Saquon matchup. I mean, obviously the offensive line for the Eagles is fantastic, so you might say it's matchup proof anyway, but it will get better if Roquan Smith does not play. So yeah, I think the way we're talking through this, for me, it's like I'm either playing a Hurts skinny with A.J. Brown, and that's pretty much it, or I'm probably just playing like one of the running backs and kind of getting out of this game. That's kind of how I'm thinking about it. Do you have any interest in Lamar stacks?
I do. I think Lamar is totally playable, especially on FanDuel. He's right there with Burrow. I mean, they're tied for the passing touchdown lead. So with Lamar, I think you could stack him up with Zay because he's still not super expensive. And you've seen some dud games from him. I think his roster percentage is going to stay relatively tame, but he's the one. I mean, Bateman has some huge plays. If you just look at the way that they use him, they also hate Deontay Johnson. They traded for him just so they could hate him.
Oh, you know what I just realized? This is a Nelson Aguilar revenge game.
You're not wrong. You think he thinks about that right now?
Every day. He's had this one circled on the calendar for the last 6 years.
I think you're going to see a lot of Zay in this game. So I think if you want to stack up Lamar, Zay, and then bring it back with A.J. Brown or Saquon, and you say, this is the game, it goes off. I was looking up Lamar games, like when they have a 50-point over-under in Lamar starts dating back to 2019, they've hit the over 62% of the time. So it is an environment that you want to buy into. It's been bet up in some places. So, but you're just running into a a salary thing. So when you're building for tournaments, ask yourself, what does a Lamar and Zay Stack and Saquon have to do? Add up the salary, and then figure out the X on it. So if it 3 X's on its salary, what do you need? Is that 65? Is that 70 points? Whatever from that stack. So any last points?
Nope, I think that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, we kind of didn't even really talk about the total. It's the highest total on the slate, for DraftKings. So obviously there's a ceiling worth chasing here in this spot. And on the Philly side, they obviously lost Brandon Graham for the year, defensive lineman. They also lost Darius Slade to concussion protocol. So they have a couple starters out. Definitely helps Baltimore here a bit.
AJ Brown, dude, he's going to be the dude. Like, he's going to roll in this game.
Is he your slate breaker?
No, he's not.
Okay.
But I do like him. I just wanted people to know that. I will be taking the Ravens in the points.
A field goal is a lot for an Eagles team that's been good. I will take Philly plus the 3. Obviously, zero bias whatsoever.
Brother, when you're riding high like that, it doesn't go very well. Okay, in the NFL.
I mean, Kyle, you might not know this, but for the last 6 weeks, I've been literally fading the exact opposite of what you're doing and betting it, and I am up about 19 units on the season. You just told me Eagles are a lock.
You're probably right about that. That's betting, right? You just do the opposite. You do the exact opposite. All right. Any other stacks you want to mention this week? I mean, there's so many different game environments. We just went over 4.
Yeah, just real quick. I mean, Bucks stacks obviously against the Panthers are in play. Baker looks good. Mike Evans is awesome. So a couple good spots there against the Panthers. Also in the DraftKings and FanDuel slate, Minnesota and Arizona. I think it's interesting. I mean, it's such a volatile spot. Like, Kyler is either fantastic or terrible, and you never know what you're going to get. But the pass rate should be there. It's in a dome. It's got a pretty healthy total. So I think that one is interesting. Does feel like a spot where everyone's kind of just like bored of Justin Jefferson because we haven't seen it recently.
Right.
So it feels like a great spot to play some Justin Jefferson this week. And then for Sunday night, make sure you're keeping track of the Purdy news, the Trent Williams news, because that Sunday night game between Buffalo and San Francisco could be, in theory, high scoring. It could also be a complete dud if San Francisco does not have their guys. I also saw some potential weather in the forecast for Sunday night in Buffalo. So Buffalo DST maybe, James Cook in a tournament on FanDuel. Obviously, that's FanDuel only there.
Bills are 7-point home favorites last time I saw, which is, 49ers haven't been this big of a dog in a long time. But
yeah,
it's just, it's sad stuff.
Slate Breaker of the Week.
All right. This week we have a special sponsor, and it's something that I had earlier today, but it is the Buffalo Chicken Dip from Trader Joe's. Have you ever had it?
Oh, it is. Oh, have I had it? Yes, it is phenomenal. Shout out to Trader Joe's.
Trader Joe's is one of the places where we don't do it very often. It's every special occasion. It's not a regular thing. But I feel like Thanksgiving week, I have it every single year where like we make a little trip and I had to get that buff chick dip.
Got to. If you haven't gotten it, everybody, I mean, change your life.
And I could say hashtag not a sponsor, but I'm just telling you right now, would love for it to be a sponsor.
DMs are open.
Yeah, just the buffalo chicken dip though. If they offer anything
Nothing else.
Yeah. Okay, so this week we've had a lot on our plate. We've had to, jam a lot of stuff. We're just going to go in together on a slate breaker about a player that we have never, ever talked up on this podcast. So go for it.
Not once. Yeah, this player, I haven't played him yet in DFS, so I'm excited to play him this year for the first time. Nico freaking Collins is going to be incredible this week. I mentioned week 4 against the Jags, 12, 151, and 1 on 14 targets. Houston needs to win this game. You talked about how terrible this pass defense is. Let's go with Nico Collins and have some fun this weekend.
Yeah, and just to give you some other numbers, the Jaguars are dead last in explosive pass plays allowed, dead last in yards per pass attempt, 8.2 yards per pass attempt. That is the second highest of any NFL team over the last 5 years at this point in the season. So the Jaguars, okay, maybe a little follow-up, a little 1-2 punch here. Okay, Nico Collins, does he annihilate the Jaguars so much that Doug Peterson does not have a job on Monday?
I'm so shocked he still has a job right now.
He's holding something over somebody.
Or they're just like, you know what? Who cares? Like, just we don't care. You don't care. Like, let's get to week 18 and get out of here. So I think he might just stick around just for, a couple more weeks.
What a turd organization. Sorry, but like across the board, just some egregious things.
Man, and they looked so promising. What, like 2 years ago? They made that. They made the wild card and they had that comeback against the Chargers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the Chargers, the old Chargers, so it's not shocking. But yeah, they were on the up and up, and they just have not gotten anything going since.
It's time for Borg versus Betz, presented by DraftKings.
All right, don't have a sportsbook? No problem. You can play DraftKings Pick 6 with us. Last week, don't tell anyone, we had a losing week.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
It's rare. It's rare these days because the official props, you guys know, are hot. And we had a little bit of a losing week. We are going to focus exclusively on the Black Friday game of the Raiders at the Chiefs. And you're asking, why did you guys pick that? Well, it's early in the week when we're recording, and we thought there were some good lines here. So we're going to give you just a couple of lines. Just to let you know, there's no kicking points props on there, but I will force one into the DFS pass later. And Betz will definitely hate me for it. But I mean, do you trust anyone more with kicking props?
Not a single person on this earth.
Is anyone else giving them out on the web?
You're literally the only person.
Should I start? I've never made a burner account and I never really want to. It's not my style. But should I make a betting account that is devoted just to kicker props?
Please. I mean, I would follow you.
Yeah. I got to figure out a good name for it. Anyway, we're going to be rolling in the money when that comes out. I'm going to quit this job. All right. First one we're going to give out is Travis Kelce more than 52.5 receiving yards. He's been more in 4 of his last 5, including the Raiders in week 8. He had 90 receiving yards against them. The Raiders are allowing the 6th most tight end receiving yards per game. And I think there is some worry because you've seen these Noah Gray games. He's had 4 touchdowns the last 2 games. I don't really care about that. I'm moving on. And I think Travis Kelce is a really good play. He's also been really good, averaging 72 receiving yards against the Raiders in his career. So Kelce more than 52.5 receiving yards.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Also, real quick on this matchup for anybody playing Showdown and stuff later today, the Chiefs are throwing a lot more than they were early in the year. Also, the Raiders are kind of quietly facing a super high pass rate over expectation in recent weeks. So teams are choosing to throw on Las Vegas. So it's a good spot, I think, for Kelce here. I am with you. On the other side of the ball, I'm going to throw out Aiden O'Connell less than 36.5 pass attempts. We took this as an official in the DFS pass. I don't know if the line has moved, from our recording, but this is just a massive line for a quarterback who's coming off of IR for a thumb injury. So, could he fall behind and the Raiders fall behind 14 points and they're just forced to chuck it? Certainly possible. But he's been under this line in 7 of 12 career starts. And, both teams are playing pretty slowly since week 8. So I think there's not a ton of play volume here. Your injury concerns, I think there's a non-zero chance if it goes south really quick, we could see Desmond Ridder. Just a lot of good outcomes here where an under makes sense.
All right, I'm going to give out one more as just kind of a fun one. It's Jacoby Myers, your boy, dude that you have been backing more than 53.
He's good, man.
He's necessary. I agree.
He's good.
Good makes it sound like he's in the category of
he's a really good wide receiver too for an NFL team.
Is he's like I think Christian Kirk is better than him, but that's the range of wide receiver.
I mean, I like Christian Kirk, so I won't argue, but I just think he's undervalued, underrated.
Yeah. He's a PPR option, whatever. But his receiving yard line is at 53.5. I will be taking the more since Devontae Adams was traded. He's averaged 9.8 targets, 77 receiving yards per game. Last week against Denver, he had 121 yards. If you look at his splits with AOC, you might get scared off and go, oh, well, he was so bad. Devontae was there last year, and they actually haven't played together this year, AOC and Myers. So you're focusing just on what the identity of the offense is right now. It's him and Bowers, and he's seeing a crazy amount of targets, like I mentioned, 10. And since week 9, The Chiefs are 28th in EPA, allowing the 11th highest completion rate. I think he could get there on volume alone. I'm not saying it's going to be pretty, but if you're playing Showdown, he's one of those like really solid plays at his price point. You know he's probably going to see 9-10 targets. So Travis Kelce, more than 52.5 receiving yards. AOC, less than 36.5 pass attempts. Jacoby Myers, more than 53.5 receiving yards. That was Borg versus Betz, presented by DraftKings Pick 6. Download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use the code BALLERS.
Ballers.
That's code BALLERS for new customers to play $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits. We have done it. Betz, tell everyone to have a good weekend.
Oh, man. I'm tired, dude. It's been a week. But hopefully everybody had an awesome Thanksgiving. Hopefully you enjoyed that slate. But no time to rest. We have a main slate on Sunday. Good luck to all of you out there. Hopefully you all win a ton of money this weekend. And we will be back for our usual Tuesday show next week. We'll catch you then.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits expire in 6 months. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.